Draft Zero Hanger, brought to you by StatsMap, where you can log your own local footy and basketball stores, and they'll spit you out your fantasy scores. So check out StatsMap after this. How do we want to sum it up? 60 picks all up. We had a few ex-AFL players in there, a few mature ages, plenty of bids, a couple of bids again that didn't get matched. It brings an end to a pretty chaotic season, but yeah.
Chaotic, I think, is the word for it. There were some real positives in there. There were some great stories, some great triumphs of persistence. I think of someone like a Billy Cootie, who we'll get to a little bit later as a mature ager. But then you're also feeling for some of the boys who are now having to wait the best part of 24 hours to see if they're going to get their chance in the rookie draft, who have been touted so highly throughout 2025, but obviously haven't been selected so far. So we hold out great hope for them for tomorrow, but we will surmise tonight before we do get to that, and plenty of clubs can come out of tonight very happy about what the future holds, Mitch. Yeah,
we've got plenty to bring you. Obviously wrapping up on this show for what happened tonight, a little bit on yesterday too. We've got plenty of intel on what clubs are going to be active tomorrow and what clubs aren't. But let's play a focus on how tonight unfolded first and foremost. Obviously get involved in the chat where you see fit. Ask questions, give us your takes on how your team went or surprise picks. But where do you want to start here tonight?
Well, 60 picks, obviously. There were plenty of bids. And what we saw tonight was the AFL has made it a little bit tougher to match bids. And as a result, we saw some clubs in the end decide not to match bids. I think of someone like a Lockie Carmichael last night. There were a couple last night, obviously. But then tonight it was Ty Printable that Collingwood went for. He was one at the top end. And it sort of was a little bit of a theme of this draft that it was a little bit harder for clubs to match, but I guess if we stick with Ty Printable and on the Collingwood theme, they clearly had a focus of bringing in more midfield talent. I feel like that was something they probably needed to do, and looking at each of those different players, there's probably a level of AFL readiness to each of them in a different way. We saw Ty Printable play for Brisbane's VFL side this year and put up some really impressive numbers at senior level. Obviously, Angus Anderson is a great story of persistence himself, and probably bridges that gap in some ways where we know they don't necessarily have that talent between sort of 23 and 27 as an ageing demographic. He certainly comes into the mould and looks like he's AFL ready in particular, and Sam Swadling in his own way with the numbers he's been putting up out west is someone who could have an impact early. So I think it was important that the Pies nailed those picks, and I think they definitely did that, and getting Zach McCarthy is a big bonus. Yeah,
he was one of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 club-tied guys who sorry, Phoenix is just handing us these road mics that he said we wouldn't have to use, and now we are having to use them, so apologies for that. I hope that's all good on your end. So Max King got there, Zach McCarthy, as you mentioned, Kai Fincher to St Kilda, Hussein Al-Ashkar to Essendon, Will Darcy was the last pick of the night to the Western Bulldogs, Williams to West Coast, Kobe Coulson was the 5th Suns Academy kid to get to Gold Coast. They were absolutely wrapped with that, and Jack Ison as well. The ones you mentioned, obviously, Ty Printable getting to Collingwood. But then the Brisbane Lions getting Kobe Evans from West Coast, and then St Kilda also getting Charlie Banfield. So the Eagles didn't have the primary list spots to match those bids after the Williams pickup, and I think there might have been one more with Sam Allen as well.
From a West Coast perspective.
So they filled up their list spots with those 5 selections after the 3 guys on night 1. So that kind of made it a bit difficult or impossible for them to get Banfield, and then obviously they'll look for Wes Wally tomorrow a little bit.
I think one that really sort of pricked my ears up was hearing Simon Dalrymple talk about where they see the future of Kai Fincher in the forward line. And that's been the line that he's been least exposed to throughout his time in the talent pathway. We know he started the season off half-back, was ultra impressive when he went into the midfield for the Sandy Zebras, and then did the same for the Dragons in the final series. We didn't see really much of him up forward unless he was resting up forward while he was playing in the midfield, but that's the position they see him in. They think he's got the powerful traits to really succeed up there. So that's one to keep an eye on and expect him to develop quite quickly up there.
Yeah, let's touch on the Gold Coast Suns. We're amazed last night that they got all 4. If you said they were going to get all 5 plus Avery Thomas, you were going to ask how, and I'm still trying to figure out how. But obviously they know a fair bit about the Suns boys, and their fans will too, but Avery Thomas is a great pickup for them, lead prospect out of Tasmania. They have no issues at all picking him off. They picked him off merit and had no resistance given his ties to Tassie and what the Devils are doing in the next few years. But a great leading backman, good run, good intercept skills, and he'll fit in nicely in that system.
Absolutely, I think adds to a bevy of halfbacks, and he's got plenty of players to learn off. And Kobe Coulson's a really great story for mine. He's one that hasn't had much exposure in previous years as a result of injuries, willed his way onto an AFL list really through how hard he's worked, and he's got the versatility to play on all three lines. Another great story, probably my favourite story of the night, was Tom Matthews from Melbourne.
Oh, yeah.
So, yeah, he was towards the start of the night when it picked 31 to the Demons, a small forward from the Gippsland Power. We know Willem Dersma's been trying to pump his tyres up for the last month or so. It's clearly worked because he's landed on an AFL list, but he's a front and centre forward. His point of difference is his pressure and his dynamic skill set. Didn't play in the second half of the season outside of a half in a Coates League final as a result of a knee injury, but his character and the way he approached that really impressed the D's, and he reunites with Rhett McLennan, who is his coach of the Gippsland Power, and the bonus there is his close mates with Bailey Humphries. So that's one to keep an eye on, Mitch.
Yeah, we'll see how that goes. I'm not sure Suns fans will agree, but I'm sure Demons fans will make a big connection for it. Yeah, obviously had a solid enough bottom age season to help his case for this year as well. So we've got like a few questions coming through. J-Step, Grittium, Max, Oi, Lockie, how are you? Dan, and Max again. I'll get to some of these now. Archie Ludowick, future text replacement. Thank you, Haggis, says Grittium. It was probably one of the best pickups of the night with how far he got down, not including the guys that obviously didn't get picked, and some of them that we'll touch on in a sec. But for the Crows, I thought he might have been a consideration with their first pick when they were at that later stage of the first round, and obviously with what they've ended up with in getting him at the later stage. I can't remember what pick he was exactly, but that's a great find for them.
I think the one thing about Archie Ludowick is there was a lot of talk about Adelaide already having their trio of tall forwards and how's he going to fit in when there's already so many of, you've got Thilthorpe there, you've got Fogarty, and you've got Taylor Walker. Obviously Taylor Walker coming towards the end, but I think that Archie Ludowick's a different type of tall forward. He's a lot more mobile. He's probably a lot better at ground level than those two other young guys, so I think he complements them quite well. It's
an area that they've obviously looked to address. Finbar Maley coming over. Tyler Walsh will get picked up tomorrow after they got him delisted a couple of weeks ago. So a few moving parts for Adelaide, but I really liked Archie Ludowick pick up for sure. That's one of the highlights, I think, from tonight's count. North Melbourne.
Yeah.
You can't really say you nailed the draft, but with probably what they wanted to get out of this count, obviously got to move up. They were quite surprised with the trade they were able to get sorted last night. Got them Lockie Dove. They held on to that first selection for night 2, and they get Blake Threadgold, who probably was a surprise not to get picked up on Wednesday. So that was 2 big ticks for them. And then Hugo Makunda, who we were really hoping for. We've said all year long, and from Craft to the Draft point of view, that we're just hoping that he was one that got picked up, and they really rated his skill set as a lively, speedy, agile half forward.
Yeah, I could see Hugo Makunda feeding it to Lockie Doverston across the next decade. I think that could be a really, really critical 1-2 punch, I suppose, in the forward line. They could form really good chemistry there. Hugo Makunda is that higher forward, probably the best of those conduit-type players in this year's draft class. And then Lockie Doverston, obviously, is that pest, as he describes himself. But Blake Threadgold's one that they did plenty of work on in the lead-up to the draft, and the fact he was still on the board at the start of the second night, I think he was always going to be one that they were going to target as an athletic and tough lockdown defender. We've
got a question from Jay Seb, is what type of player is Ty Hayes? And let's get into some of the mature ages, because that is one of the headlines from tonight's count, with Ty Hayes, Billy Cootie, Angus Anderson, Tobin Murray all getting picked up. Ty Hayes out of Southport, a pure wingman maybe. He can certainly play a number of flank roles, but that was kind of what put him into some prominence for this year's draft.
Yeah, he made the wings at Fankau as a reserve, the really big wings, his own, and I think he's a really nice size. He's really good aerially as well, and I think something that stands out about him is there's so much scope, because it's his first year in the VFL system, previously played quaffle footy, so I think there's great opportunity and great reason to be optimistic that he's going to improve again. And probably right when he did start to capture attention was when he got injured for the rest of the season. So we didn't probably get to see the culmination of all of that hard work, because he probably had another level to go to. So some real cause for excitement for Brisbane fans, and from his point of view, he gets to stay local. Yeah,
and Billy Cootie, so out of Norwood, getting picked up by Sydney. Nice little story for him. I think it was formerly Essendon VFL, and he gets his way onto the list. Tobin Murray, one who's been flirted with as AFL interest over probably the last 18 months. Geelong Falcons into the Young Gun series last year as well was promising. And then Geelong VFL this year, and a little bit last year too. And then Angus Anderson at Collingwood, who outsturt Best On in their grand final win this year, was rated out of Sydney's academy a little bit as a pure midfielder, but over the last few years has grown and made his game a bit more versatile, and in that process has got himself onto an AFL list with Collingwood.
Absolutely, well summed up. We'll move on to GWS. They always talk about drafting on traits, and I think that was really evident evident tonight with the fact that Oscar Taylor and Finn Davis obviously present as similar types of players as those running halfbacks who have also got the ability to be really hard to beat one-on-one, but Adrian Caruso, speaking at his press conference, spoke about the fact that they see great flexibility and great ability for both players to play other positions, referenced Oscar Taylor potentially going into the midfield. But yeah, two exciting prospects there. And Finn Davis, a good story, one that's lesser known, but good to see the Western Jets get a boy drafted this season.
Yeah, we had both those boys in the office for a few interviews a couple months ago, so they'll be rapt to be going and playing for GWS together.
Yep.
A lot of the comments, and for very obvious reasons, is some of the players that didn't get picked up. Ollie Greaves, Noah Hibbins, Hargreaves. So obviously Oizam was one of them. Max, you've talked about this as well with Ollie. I think we've got here Dan's as well. Thoughts on Greaves and HH not being selected. They're probably the two that come to mind. Also, Riley says, NHH, Heatherton, and Kraz as well.
For me, probably the three or four were NHH, Liam Heatherton, Ollie Greaves, Marcus Krasnodemskis in that order. Noah Hibbins-Hargreaves has too much match-winning ability to overlook. He has to find his way onto an AFL list. So fingers crossed for him. Hopefully a club takes a chance on him at the rookie draft at 3:20 p.m. tomorrow.
Yep.
And then, Marcus Krasnodemskis, because he's been linked to a couple of clubs that we know are going to be active tomorrow, so hopefully he finds his way. Ollie Greaves, the big-bodied midfielder. There were whispers that he was going to be a real drifter, but was he going to drift this far? Maybe we didn't expect it was going to be quite this big a drift. And Liam Heatherton, you just feel for him because he just didn't get the opportunity to show what he could do as a result of injury this year, but there's certainly some upside. So hopefully, fingers crossed, that those four boys get picked up. Yeah,
there's plenty there. Louis Callaway will be a talking point tomorrow. There's plenty to play out. Three Centrals boys go to the Hawks. Yeah, we heard from Mark McKenzie. He didn't plan for it, but with obviously Schubert, Nan and Leray, three key pieces of South Australia's carnival run this year, they'll make them feel so much at home when they're coming across the country. They get to play with three teammates. So that is a nice little part of Hawthorn's coup. Shout out to Lockie. Thanks again for the donation, mate. Always appreciate that. I can't say for sure if you're. Are you an NRL fan? Are you Melbourne Storm?
I'm an NRL fan.
I guess I'll say the Storm, just given I'm in Melbourne, but I can't say I watch too much NRL. So thank you again, Lockie. We'll get into a little bit of what might happen tomorrow. So we've got a fair bit of intel on most clubs. I know someone did ask about what Essendon might do. Matty Rosa was out of here pretty red hot, so we actually didn't get to speak to Matt after Essendon's draft haul. But we have information on plenty of clubs, so thank you. Obviously, thanks to StatsMap bringing you this live stream and all the great support for Craft the Draft and Zero Hang on YouTube. If you play local footy, local basketball, you can put in your own stats and then it'll spit out a fantasy score. You can compare that to your mates, so go check them out. Tomorrow, rookie draft. As you said, it's 3:20 p.m. start, so clubs are given a little bit more time tomorrow to get their stuff sorted. There will be paperwork lodged for some Cat Bs, so some NGA or Academy guys who didn't get picked up, they can automatically list. They don't have to do so through the rookie draft. So one of them will be Collingwood. They have one spot. Tom McGuan and Jai Saxon are two, so one of those guys will miss out. Obviously, McGuan's story's been a little bit more public, just given the name and the focus and that big, arising at I think it was the Combine weekend when that was kind of known that they probably wouldn't be bidding or matching a bid unless it was through rookie circumstances. So that'll be one to watch tomorrow. The Cats will have one spot. They'll pick up George Stevens and Keating Mattify-Forbes, but Stephen Wells will have one spot, this spot up his sleeve. West Coast have one Cat A and one Cat B. So obviously they missed out on Banfield, missed out on Evans, and you think Wes Wally's probably the Cat B option for them. Let's go through a few more. Carlton will hold one of their list spots for the SSP, so while they could make a selection tomorrow, it's unlikely that they will. Roos have none. The Western Bulldogs will be inactive as well. The Swans have a couple of Cat Bs to assess with some of their Academy boys who aren't picked up. Chamberlain, those are the two in particular, so they'll have to weigh up I guess what happens tomorrow, but they will obviously be selecting Jake Lloyd and Dane Rampy after they were delisted.
If they do select Noah Chamberlain, I think that'd be a real bonus and a real discount, given how highly touted he was at different points in his talent pathway career. He's got some real attributes as a half-forward winger.
St Kilda, sounds like they'll just relist Pat said. Correct. They got Ryan Burns through the national draft as was planned. Kalani White for Melbourne, that should happen tomorrow. GWS will list Riley Hamilton as a Cat B. Obviously, after they decided to pick up Jake Stringer tonight, so that gave them the option to just list Riley as a Cat B, and then Connor Stone will be that other selection for them in the rookie draft. The Dockers will have Toby One and Ryder Luke listed as Cat Bs tomorrow, so that'll happen pretty early in the morning. The Hawks have some list spots. The Lions less so. They'll pick up Lincoln McCarthy, but it sounds like that might be it. So Isaac Waller will be one, potentially open to a few other clubs.
Jackson Bridge.
Yeah, he's another one. Yep. So like I said, Dogs inactive. Port are probably one of the bigger watches tomorrow. So what they've done is actually upgrade Logan Evans to the primary list. That comes after Josh Lai, Cochrane, and I think Harrison Round was the third one that they elevated to primary lists ahead of the draft. So they've got 3 rookie list spots. They're certainly considering the SSP, but they might come away with a couple. And as you mentioned before, Marcus Krasnodamskis.
Liam Heatherton's also been
they've both been tied. So there's some options certainly for them for Port Adelaide. So there's plenty to happen tomorrow. And then the Suns will relist Ben Jepson as well in what's likely their only move. So I think that was most clubs. Like I said, we've missed out on a couple, but you can tune in live tomorrow on zerohanger.com for the rookie draft, preseason draft. Obviously, we'll know with Adelaide that they'll pick up Cal Archie and Tyler Welsh too. So we didn't get to hear from the Crows, but that's pretty safe to assume that Archie in the preseason draft, assuming all goes well for them, and then Tyler Welsh too in the rookie draft. So 3:20 p.m. tomorrow on Friday Eastern time, and then shortly after that we'll be in our studio filming. It won't be live, but it'll be out. Ideally, maybe late Friday, early Saturday. We'll see how we go, but we'll have a massive wrap up. What are we kind of going to cover? Just about everything for every club.
Yeah, it'll be a club by club analysis. So yeah, keep an eye on that. Find out how your club went, how we sort of dissect it based on what you got, how value for money, value for picks, everything like that. But no, I think we've done well, Mitch, tonight, and I think the clubs will, as they always do on draft night, emerge happy, and time will tell whether their picks end up being as positive as what they think they will be.
Yeah, it's another busy period done. A lot of list teams can finally sit back.
Take a sigh of relief.
Yeah, and then it all rolls around next year. Obviously, Port Adelaide didn't have any picks tonight, but that was kind of expected. We weren't really sure what was going to happen. There was
talk late that they were going to take one.
It sounded like the Ducks certainly had to align for them to make that selection. But they get a better hand for next year. Dougie Cochrane, they're going to be rapt to have as part of their planning for 2026. So it has worked out for them in a way. Like we said, they'll be busy the rookie draft, so plenty to unfold. And obviously, we spoke with a lot of list managers, recruiters tonight, so you'll catch some of those press conferences on Zero Hangers YouTube. Obviously, stick around on Craft the Draft social, zerohanger.com for all the latest. We'll have our top 2026 prospects piece coming out soon, and then next week's Craft the Draft episode will have a big focus on next year's crop. We haven't really spoken about the 2026 AFL Academy squad that got named a couple of weeks ago, and then we'll talk about some of the best kids coming through for next year's draft. So thanks again for tuning in on our live stream. Hope you enjoyed the draft. Hope you're happy with what your team picked up. And thanks again to StatsMap for supporting us. Obviously, like I said, if you're a local footy player, local basketball player, and you want to compare some fantasy stats with your mates, you can do so via StatsMap. You can go give them on the app stores. But yeah, that's about it. I'm happy to wrap up there.
Let's do it.
Cool. Woo. Another $5 from Lucky. I think I covered just about everyone in here.
I think I was louder that time.
Yeah, I was trying to get you to do that.
Yeah.